Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines here in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and Jackie here from Copenhagen, Denmark.
And we were just discussing the zombie apocalypse, but we're still both alive, so hopefully people are still watching and enjoying this.
Yeah, there's way too few zombies, I'd say, but yeah.
There's I don't know if that's such a thing. I don't think there's ever too few. One is too many for me.
One is too many, that's probably right. But yeah, in an apocalypse, if I'm not seeing any zombies, I'm like, maybe not today. Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, so I was talking to Jackie. I was doing, so let me share my screen here. And I was working on something, I forget what it was, but it popped in my mind that this, which we've touched on before, the webinar where we talk about learning like AutoHotkey or anything in 20 hours, this hierarchy of competence, and that, look, there's, a lot of people break it down into 4 sections. There's the unconscious incompetence, so you don't even know that you're not even doing something wrong, right? Like you just have no clue what you're doing. Then there's conscious incompetence, where I start having a clue that I'm screwing up, but I really don't know what I'm doing about it. And then there's the conscious competence, where if I really focus on what I'm doing, that's kind of actually where I think I am as a AutoHotkey programmer, right? I can't do it in my sleep, but I can be pretty good. And then there's a unconscious competence, where people like Jackie and Maestrith that can do stuff in like seconds, and my mouth just goes, oh, okay, wow. But those are different levels of it. And what I was thinking about was, when we talk to businesses, what we should be starting to try to explain to people is, wouldn't it be great if you could look at people that are at this level and maybe this level and talk to them and extract that knowledge and the logic that they have in their brain and write scripts to allow people that are at one of these 2 levels, even people that are unconscious incompetence, right? You can break something down so easy to very simple stuff that even someone that starts in a given day or 2 days can really start doing the work at the same speed of someone doing unconscious competence work.
And I think it falls along to a lot of the things that we have been talking about lately, right? Where also with the general knowledge of computers that we've been talking about, where you have a lot of IT tools, you have text editors, you have browsers, you have all these different types of tools that make it easy to be entry-level IT knowledge and still be able to use the internet. Back in the day when I started, I weren't in any one of the first, but I still needed to understand how to use a modem and how to open an interface that would call the correct point and wait and be able to ping and figure out which way I would search the internet or which pages to go through and wait around for who knows how long for something to load. And to me, it's all of these things have made more of this pyramid have a chance when using a computer.
Well,
and that's...
Let me see if I can summarize a bit of what you said, because I totally, after you said it, I started thinking about that, and I think I understand your one of your points in this was, a lot of the tools now, especially like an iPhone, right? It's built with such simplicity in mind that someone can come up to it and use it without having to know how a modem works, how all these other things work. It's like touch here, drag that. Oh yeah, you got it, right? It's almost anyone can use it. Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, and that's also where I'm seeing with automation, as you said yourself, we have this pretty complex task over here, and we're using a good amount of time on it. And someone who's maybe conscious incompetent might still be able to solve with a bit more legwork and handout for someone or whatever it might be. And someone conscious competent might be able to just do it in a day or 2 or whatever, or them working together might get it solved a little bit quicker. But if you then automated parts of the process, it might be something that conscious incompetent could do at the same time as a conscious competent, or yellow could do it in the same time as a green, or whatever. How, if you can actually see the screen here, they're color coded from blue, green, yellow to red, and it's just I'm pretty sure that's one of the big aspects of this, as we talked about with RPA. If you actually get a bot like that, where you can have it done automatically, or most of the way, or all that data collection from different systems might be done automatically, so the end person only needs to maybe fact check them or whatever it might be that needs to happen in the end. But yeah, I'd say that's one of the big parts of automation.
And the other thing, which I think it's pretty obvious, but the speed at each of these for workers, right, is greatly different. These guys are so much faster at what they're doing compared to someone who's, obviously these people, you don't even want them working, right? They're actually costing you work, they're costing you money instead of helping you. But everywhere in here, in the more this is where you could get into of understanding, hey, you know what, this is why when you start doing your speed testing stuff is of how much money can I save by adopting RPA type things. Now this is where it gets a little more complex, right? Because if you're not doing desktop RPA and you're doing more of a truly an end-to-end solution that doesn't have any, what is it called, assisted RPA, you might greatly outperform an unconscious competent person, right? Because you can fully automate everything and scale it by 100 things, and it's just done lightning fast. But if that's not the case, and you're still required to have a human kind of little interact with it, you probably can get it pretty darn close to the speed at what these people are doing. And then it's just some simple math, right, of figuring out, well, how much programming is going to take to get me there? What are these guys costing me? Can I really get them, at that same speed? And just doing some multiplication to figure out what, is it worth doing?
But it to me, it can really be worth it, even if you have today where yellow conscious incompetent might with help be able to solve whatever task it is within a week. Mm-hmm. But an unconscious incompetent person might not even be able to solve it. Where if you then create the correct tool or automation of the harder parts of the process or whatever it might be, you might be able to even move an unconscious incompetent person to a conscious competence level or speed. So you can even utilize workforce or whatever you'd call that you couldn't before. And to me, that I don't know enough about Amazon's different worker environments, but when hearing about some of this pace that are in these packing centers at Amazon and stuff, where they're pretty much taking people in from the street, because the only thing you need to do is you need to pick an item, and if it's a salt shaker, you can probably find it, and place it on a cart. Let's say that's the thing you need to do.
Systems.
Yeah. And by implementing stuff like, now you don't need to move around in the storage facility, because the items actually come to your standing place or whatever you would call it. And recently, from what I've heard, the item that you need to select is even lit up. So two things: you don't need to move around on a big storage space, and you no longer need to actually locate item. You only need to move your hand to the lit up place and place it in the cart. So now the the competence level of the person there doesn't even need to recognize a salt shaker, just to continue
or speak English or whatever language for that matter.
Exactly.
Right? It's just, it's brilliant. So even the most hungover, dumb person in the world could probably still function and do the job.
Yeah. And the only bad downsides to what I've heard about it is that means that because I don't know if it's AI systems, but at least there's some automated systems keeping track of people's performance that is now maybe twisting the needed speed a little too high, because a competent person can do that really, really quickly. So an unconscious, incompetent person would have a really, really hard time of keeping up, perhaps. And that becomes a thing like an elite item picker, right? Because the pace becomes so high that to really compete, you need to perform at your max every day. And if it's a bodily movement you need to do, you can probably be run down pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I was thinking about this graph, I have another one, by the way, but, is I was thinking about it from your and my perspective. If we get brought into a situation and they're like, hey, we'd like you to automate this thing. We have employees that, are all these different levels. Who would we want to talk to? And logically, I think we would think, well, this unconscious competence person is, hey, he knows it inside and out. At the same time, I'm a little hesitant to say I would want someone kind of like in between the two, right? Because some of these people, they know it so well, they might not even understand, like they no longer even think about it. They'd have to, it's not obvious to them because it's ingrained in them. Does that make sense?
I do. I think I understand, because I'm reading the things right to the side here where you have from the bottom up, wrong intuition, wrong analysis, and right analysis and right intuition, where to me, the right intuition might be really, really good to get the task done. Yeah. But if you're trying to automate it, it might be one who's does the correct analysis that might be the correct person to get a hold of to try and automate it. Because I've had at least colleagues that do something so often and they just do it. Right. They do it so quickly that when I come in and say, oh, but what do you really do here? But I just get it out the way, or whatever they say. I don't have a concrete example, but where if I ask someone who just recently got that task, they would be, and then I go here, and then I go there.
They know the reasons why they do it, because it hasn't slipped into their subconscious where they don't have to think about it, right? That's why I was like, that's kind of interesting. That's probably, now these guys would still be great to talk to, right, about other things, and especially maybe what it is, it's really watch these guys. But when you have questions, you can ask them. But these guys might be a little bit better about filling in the gaps of the logic. But these guys you might find things that these guys had no idea on, because no one has taught them the ways that actually work.
Yeah, and I've, not because I've seen many people, but to me it's also like, if you're good at your shortcut keys in whatever program that you're used to using, it can become almost intuitive to you to do whatever thing you're doing, where someone who doesn't do it as often actually knows where they're clicking, actually knows what they're looking for, why they're adding that thing, why am I also sending it CC to this person? Because
it's an out-of-state thing, and with that case I have to do this. But that's not written down anywhere. But also with what you just said, it reminded me, because I'll be doing something with my business partner, and I won't be at the computer, and I'll be like, oh, just he's like, what was the key combo? And I'm like, I have to sit at the computer. I have to do it. I can't tell you what it is. I don't know. I just know my hand does it. And I'm like, oh, that was it. I know it. My body knows it. I just don't have it up in my head of what I'm actually doing.
I've 2 times in my life I've forgotten my PIN code for my credit card. Both times after a long night out, and both times because I got to an ATM where the number board was shifted. And because
I get it. I understand. Yeah.
Was in a pretty bad state, probably, or I just killed too many brain cells or whatever I did, because I no longer actually
muscle memory.
Remembered the numbers, or I might have remembered the numbers, but as soon as I clicked the numbers and it told me they were wrong, I consciously thought, what are the numbers?
Yeah.
And then because I couldn't see it on the board, being at the right place, I was so
hilarious. Well, if you like, you can tell me your numbers right now and I'll write them down for you.
So. Yeah, sure.
That is a funny story, though. That's awesome. All right, let's get on to this next one. The next one isn't perfect, but I finally did find one that was a little bit more about, what things should we automate? And it kind of gets back into, I'm not sure if this graph does it justice, but you don't probably want to go and automate things that are totally new, right? Because they change so much and it's uncertain. And that what triggered me in this one was the optimizing level isn't done at the very beginning, right? In any given process. I like to hear it was repeatable level. And you start, clarifying that overall process. But to me, it was, again, it's on anything. You don't necessarily start on something that's very new. You don't write a program for that usually, right? You work through it to figure out kind of what works and what doesn't work, and hey, are things going to change or better ways before you actually start writing a program to do it.
Yeah, I've been in situations where it was, at least to me, it was initial level. I had never seen the task before, but someone else had been doing it from time to time. And when then asking them and analyzing questions to see if it was automatable, they were too maybe vague, or they hadn't really narrowed it down to being a specific thing they did. It still was, even to them, too early of a stage where they hadn't gotten to a place where they knew exactly what the variables were.
Right.
So by definition, it was a bit too early to try and automate it for me, because I didn't know enough of the.
And I think your point gets back to, when people are new to a process, they're in this level somewhere, and so they can't tell you because they just don't know. They're working through it. Yeah, that's a good point. Awesome. Well, hopefully that was an interesting discussion. Do we have anything else we can talk about it with?
No, not right now.
I think one is just to, as with all the stuff, is start, talking to people, writing it down, clarify your processes as best you can. But it's just a fun way to think about it, of understanding who you might want to talk to and how it affects what they're going to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, it was a good chat.
Yeah, was.
Talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Yeah.